At first glance, the Sukhoi Su-47 looks like a fighter built wrong. Its wings swept sharply forward, and its cockpit perched so far ahead of the wings it almost seems like an afterthought. To the untrained eye, it barely looks airworthy. Its design was so radical that only one prototype was ever built, shelved among Russia's archive of forgotten Cold War experiments. But the nation never forgot it. As Russia wages a new war that some fear could spiral beyond Ukraine's borders, engineers are taking notes from this old predator, channeling its untapped potential into the Kremlin's latest generation of stealth fighters. As the Red Army marched into Germany in the spring of 1945, Soviet soldiers swept through the factories that had once powered Hitler's Luftwaffe. In late April, they reached the Junkers factory in Dessau. Inside, Soviet troops discovered the remnants of a strange, futuristic bomber, the Junkers Ju-287. It wasn't its engines or armament that drew attention, but its wings, which, unlike every other aircraft at the time, were swept forward. From that moment on, the concept of an aircraft with wings bent forward toward the nose haunted Soviet aerospace design. These wings reversed the airflow pattern found in traditional aircraft. Instead of air rushing outward toward the wingtips, it flowed inward toward the fuselage, helping to delay stall, maintain lift, and slash through drag. In theory, it would give fighters unmatched agility and extreme maneuverability at high angles of attack. However, for decades, no aircraft was able to incorporate a design like this effectively. Forward-swept wings were a ticking time bomb. At high speeds, air pressure twisted the wingtips upward, increasing lift in a dangerous feedback loop. Metal wings simply couldn't survive the strain. It wasn't until the 1980s that carbon fiber composites arrived to change the game. They were strong, light, and could be aeroelastically tailored, designed at the microscopic level to bend in ways that counteracted the dangerous twisting forces. For Soviet engineers, it was the moment they'd been waiting for. In 1983, Sukhoi was tasked with creating a jet, known internally as the S-37, which was later redesignated as the Su-47. It would be a stealth-capable testbed, built around one of the most radical airframe designs ever conceived. But just as engineers set to work, the Soviet Union collapsed around them. Alexander Konashenkov, one of the composite technicians tasked with helping build the wings of the jet, would recall, quote, "It was a difficult time. Factories were closing, making the situation generally difficult, and we received an order to manufacture a forward-swept wing for the Su-47. Despite economic collapse and logistical mayhem, Sukhoi's engineers pressed on. As the first carbon fiber wings were finished, they were brought for testing at the Sukhoi Design Bureau's lab. There, engineers conducted rigorous trials in which the wings were subjected to the violent forces of simulated takeoffs, turbulence, and hard landings. Engineers froze as faint cracking noises began to echo through the test hall, a sign that the carbon fibers were nearing their limit. They slowly began to bend, yet hold until the end. The wings had passed their test. Now, it was time for the Su-47 to take them to the sky. It was September 1996 when the Su-47 took its first flight, with test pilot Igor Vitintsev at the controls. Back on the tarmac, every engineer held their breath as the jet thundered down the runway, powered by its twin Soloviev D-30 F-11 engines. It could climb to nearly 60,000 feet, pushing past Mach 2. For a machine measuring over 75 feet in length with a wingspan of 54 feet, the Su-47 moved like a bird half its size. Reports soon emerged, claiming that even junior military pilots could fly it without specialized training, as its handling was so intuitive. The jet was nicknamed the Berkut, Russian for Golden Eagle, and debuted publicly at the MAX 1999 air show. Spectators watched as the jet spiraled through impossible vertical climbs, pivoted on a dime, and dove like a bird of prey. No other aircraft in Russia's arsenal could match its aerial acrobatics. But beneath the celebration, cracks were starting to show. Despite its capabilities, the Su-47 came with a price tag as steep as its climb rate. Each of its handcrafted composite wings cost over $1.2 million, a price tag out of reach for late 1990s Russia, still grappling with the collapse of the Soviet Union. For military officials weighing priorities, the Su-47 began to look less like a future warplane and more like a high-tech trophy. Its radical wing design, while revolutionary in dogfights and low-speed maneuvering, raised serious concerns at supersonic speeds. Engineers feared that the tendency for the wingtips to twist under pressure could spiral into failure if pushed too far. Then came the engines. Although the Soloviev D-30 power plants provided significant thrust, they were not designed for stealth or next-generation performance. The aircraft would never go into serial production, and only one was ever built. In 2019, 2 decades after its debut, the Su-47 was dusted off and rolled to the Zhukovsky International Airport during the MAX International Air Show. Though the aircraft remained grounded in a static display, its successor, the Sukhoi Su-57, did take off. The Su-57, known by NATO as Felon, is Russia's first operational fifth-generation stealth fighter. Its almost flat fuselage and blended wing body tore across the clouds while performing a complex aerial routine at the event, showcasing the sort of sharp turns and drastic maneuvers that the Su-47 was intended for. It took nearly 2 decades for this new fighter to be officially introduced to Russia's ranks, but the wait was worth it. Equipped with twin Saturn AL-41F1 engines, it can reach speeds of over 1,325 miles per hour and soar to altitudes above 66,000 feet. It blends high-speed performance with low observable stealth, a combination made possible in part by design principles first tested on the Su-47. At the most recent Aero India Air Show, the Su-57 stunned the world when it rocketed off the runway in just 11 seconds, an acceleration feat that, by expert estimates, required the jet to hit 155 to 175 miles per hour virtually instantaneously. While the Su-47 was never armed, the Su-57 is fully equipped with weapons, packed with a 30mm GSH-31 autocannon and internal bays capable of carrying up to 16,500 pounds of ordnance, allowing the jet to strike air, ground, and naval targets. Although Russia initially seemed to doubt whether its newest fighter was ready for combat, reports confirm that the Su-57 has now entered combat over the skies of Ukraine. The first reports of the Su-57's presence in Ukraine began circulating in 2022. Statements from Russian officials claimed that their most advanced fighter jet had been deployed to the conflict zone, assigned to high-risk search-and-destroy operations. These claims gained traction when both British intelligence reports and independent military analysts on platforms like Telegram confirmed sightings of the Su-57 over the contested Luhansk region. Since then, Ukraine has endured a series of aggressive aerial strikes against military and civilian targets. One of the most devastating came recently, when Kyiv was victim to one of Russia's heaviest missile barrages to date. Over 24 civilians were injured, and at least 1 life was lost. Still, it remains uncertain how many of these assaults have been executed by the elusive Su-57. Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Colonel Yuri Inat has acknowledged the limitations of their radar capabilities when it comes to positively identifying aircraft like the Su-57, making it difficult to determine whether Russia's top-tier stealth jet or one of its more conventional aircraft is behind any particular strike. One key reason Russia might be holding back on using its stealth fleet en masse is scarcity. Estimates suggest Russia possesses anywhere from just 10 to 32 operational Su-57s, making each jet a prized strategic asset. That's precisely why Ukraine has prioritized targeting them. In June 2024, Ukrainian forces claimed a major breakthrough, a long-range strike on the Akhtubinsk airfield, located 360 miles from the front line, reportedly damaged an Su-57 on the ground. Satellite imagery showed visible damage to the aircraft's fuselage. Fighter Bomber, a pro-Russian Telegram channel often cited for reliable military leaks, acknowledged the damage, stating, quote, "Whether the bomber can be restored or not is currently being determined." However, just months later, Russian officials announced a new wave of Su-57s was in production. Vadim Badeka from the United Aircraft Corporation revealed, quote, "We will continue expanding the capacity for batch production of Su-57 this year. Deliveries increased significantly last year. The fighter has evolved immensely. Its weapons and onboard systems continue to advance." Shortly after, new photos emerged online showing 2 freshly manufactured Su-57s marked 25 red and 26 red, suggesting that, despite economic sanctions, Russia's stealth program is still alive and growing. Although analysts remain uncertain whether these jets incorporate any major upgrades, the situation remains worrisome for Ukraine, especially if these felons are set to be deployed alongside Russia's unmanned aerial systems, which, thanks to the engineering lessons brought by the Su-47, have become deadlier than ever.